Great. Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to have you logging in tonight. Rob Hoatson, thanks so much for joining us all the way from Newcastle. Really appreciate your time tonight. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Steve. It's great to be with you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, great pleasure. I see a number of people have started commenting on YouTube and Facebook. Jeff, Bill, Linda, good to hear from you guys. Ginny, if you want to drop in a question or a comment or just give a thumbs up or a how's it, that'd be great. You're welcome to do that. And there's a little bit of a delay between you posting and us seeing it, but lovely to have everybody involved. And Rob, I've been looking forward to this interview from early in the year when I was up in Newcastle, and we discussed you coming on the weekend, being part of the church service and me interviewing you live. The coronavirus crisis has turned this into an online interview, but that's really awesome. Great to have you with us. Just also for those watching, by way of introduction, I've known Rob pretty much since high school days. We were 1 year apart at high school. I wouldn't say we were close friends, but knew each other. And then I went to varsity, and my first year varsity was with Kim, your current or your wife. You weren't married at that time, of course.
My first wife.
Your first and only, yeah. And I know she's listening there in the background as well. And then we lost touch a little bit after school, but when I went up to Bridge Church at Newcastle, what a pleasant surprise to see you guys connected and part of the leadership team there, hugely involved in local church and obviously in business. And Rob, your family started out in forestry. Was your main business, and sawmills and having timber in various places. You bought Normandine Farms up in Newcastle, mainly for timber, and you moved up there with Kim to farm and to run the operation up in Newcastle. And then some years back, 5 or 6 years ago, had an extraordinary moment where you looked underneath the surface of the ground. For me, your story is absolutely mind-blowing. And I'd love you to share with me and some of the listeners or guys logging in, just some of the story of how you went from forestry to being in the water business.
Sure, Steve. Thanks again for having me. I wanted to add that my first memory of you, I met you in high school, and I was playing like under 14D rugby, and you were our ref. And I thought that being a college boy that you would just blow the game totally our way, and you weren't. You were the most fair ref that I'd ever had at that stage. And I thought, who's this oak? He has such an overdeveloped sense of righteousness because he's so fair. And
disturbingly fair.
I remember that rugby match. It was down at the bottom, like it was yesterday.
Oh, that's brilliant, brilliant.
So Steve, yeah, we have been up here since 2005. We bought these farms up here just before that, and they were just timber farms, and that's was our main business. It still is our main family business, although I'm not involved in it any longer. I've subsequently moved on, but we grow timber, mill timber, and sell timber mostly for structural, for building and construction. And I was just on the farm one Sunday afternoon, and I bumped into this lady who was the sister of one of our employees, one of our farm managers, and she'd driven 30 k's to come and get some water from her sister who lived on the farm. And I stopped her and I started chatting to her, and I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And she said, "No, she's just come here to get some water." And I said, "But the water in town, which was 30 kilometers away, is absolutely fine. Why would you drive all this way to just fetch water?" And she said to me, "This water just tastes absolutely amazing." And that was just the spark that I suppose we needed to get the thought process going. And
she was running a spring there on your farm.
Yeah, there's a spring that flows down the mountain. In fact, where I spoke to her is probably about 300 meters away from where we ended up building the plant.
Wow.
And so once the spark once we started thinking about this and we started looking at it, we were just amazed at, once we dug in at what was happening in the world and how the trends globally had moved towards health and wellness, and how people, the explosion of bottled water. And then on top of that was our South African water situation, which is really not good. The guys haven't invested what they should have. They haven't looked after the infrastructure, and it's falling to pieces. And so all of that put together just creates an amazing opportunity. And then we did that. I put together a plan. It took me about three or 4 months. We developed a brand. I pitched the whole thing to my family, because we're a family business. We're a father and my dad, and we're 4 sons. And once I pitched it to them, I said, "Go ahead." There was a lot of thought that went into it. It wasn't just blind faith. It's calculated, obviously, looking at what's going on in the world around you at the time and where the opportunities may lie. And so we went then and pulled the trigger in early January 2015, and we started building this factory. The two things that are always quite challenging in that space is if you need to do something like this, or if you want to do something like that, you've got to do it on scale, and that adds cost to the process. It's quite difficult to start something in that space, a consumer-facing business that's not volume driven. So you've got to do it on scale. And you can't go to retailers or potential customers with an idea, because they laugh you out the door. So you've actually got to go with a product in your hand and capability to produce it and supply that product. So
you had to invest millions before you even bottled your first bottle.
We had to take a major step of faith and build this factory and develop this brand without a single customer or a single guaranteed order. And that was easier in the beginning. And I'll share with you as we talk later how it later became evident. I would still do it exactly the same. I wouldn't change anything, but it was a good decision, and it was a decision that I'm glad we took. But
there's some proper risk involved at that time.
There was a calculated risk, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know at the time. So anyway, thank you.
Rob, can I interrupt you there just to show everyone some pictures of your farm and what of the beginning? Kev, if you don't mind just putting up the source picture. That's on the top of the mount, on the top of the berg, looking back over KZN, and the water gathers up there and flows down kind of to the base of that mountain, Rob, where you've built your factory. Yeah. And then just the next pic, and then I'll ask you to comment. Those were you drilled some pilot holes all over the place, again, part of your initial cost to find the best place to source the water from.
Yeah. So what's lucky about the first pic is the source. And when you get in the water business, everyone asks you, hey, have you got a source? What's your source? Tell us about your source. Have you got how strong is your source, or how much have you got? Or, and it's just it's always a great opportunity to say to the oaks, actually, we do have a source. We have an amazing source, and his name is Jesus Christ. So it gives us a great opportunity to put up our flag early on in a conversation. But the truth about this particular source is that our farm is right up against the northern berg, and in fact, it goes to the Free State border on the top of the berg, and so we have a massive amount of water available to bottle, and we've got a sustainable yield of around about 700 million liters of water off this property, and that's more than the entire industry currently in South Africa. So we could grow our business. There's no limit to the amount of water that we could possibly bottle in the future. So and you
were on top of it the whole time without realizing it, which I think is another metaphor for the grace of God, that we sit like our lives are there and we don't access it like we should.
Steve, it was there all the time. We had an inkling, but we didn't know. And I subsequently found out that a couple of years before I even got into Newcastle, before I even moved here, there was a prophecy in our church, actually, at the time. And a guy had said there's something that's going to come out of these mountains, because you can see the mountains from town. There's something that's going to come out of these mountains that's going to go to the ends of South Africa. It's going to go to the far-flung corners of South Africa. I had no idea. Only 2 or 3 years after we started doing this did that prophecy come out again.
Absolutely amazing. Rob, I see your video is hung there while you try and get your camera back on and off again. Kev, maybe I could ask you to show that picture of the construction day one. Rob will just log in again to get his camera working. But this was a really, really special photo. This was after they'd cleared some ground, and Rob had his family out there. But on the left-hand side of that pic, you can see a man with a cap on, and that's Richard Coley, another friend of myself and Jack's, who's the pastor of the church up there in Newcastle. And Rob, you invited him out onto that piece of land. The first thing you did before you poured the concrete was to pray and ask for God's blessing on what you were doing. It's for me, this is like your outstanding pick of the whole process.
Yeah, Steve, this is my favorite pick of the whole thing. And I just knew, so I didn't. It wasn't like a moment when an angel appeared before me and told me to do this, but I just knew in my heart that this was really going to move the dial for us, and it was something that I needed to do, and I know that came from the Lord. And I felt really strongly that I wanted to commit this business to the Lord. I wanted to commit everything that happened in and around this business to the Lord from the very beginning, from day one. And so what we did was, that was the 9th of January 2015. It's me, my daughters, some of their friends, my wife Kim, and our pastor Richard on the left there. And I asked Rich to come out, and Kim and all the girls and some friends, and the bulldozer was busy driving up and down, clearing the site past us as we prayed, and we just prayed. And we just said, Lord, we place this business in your hands. We commit this business to you. Our vision is for this business to be hugely successful, to pour into the kingdom. And we need your blessing. We need your hand of protection. We need your covering over us if we're going to go ahead and do this. And so it was just I love that pick, and I look back at it every now and then, and I wouldn't do it differently. Yeah,
special thing to I know God's always been at the center of your lives, but to have him there front and center in your business as well, Rob, is really, really awesome. And just while we're on the pics, maybe I could show that other pic of what the finished building looked like, the one with the truck in front of it, Kev. That was the end of phase one with your Interlink trucks. The other cool thing about being in Newcastle, which you told me, was that you're like perfectly positioned for distribution to the different corners of South Africa, equidistant from Free State, Joburg, Durban, and everywhere is far from Cape Town.
Yeah, Steve. So, I come from a logistics background, and a low value product, a commodity item like water, you want to move it as cheaply as you possibly can. And so that was also what we discovered when we were doing all the homework, is that where we sit there, and I call it the middle of nowhere, and it is the middle of nowhere, but the key word being the middle. We like 3 hours to Joburg, 3 hours to Durban, 4 hours to Nelspruit, 4 hours to Bloem, and that's 85% of the South African consumer market. So, wow. Slap bang in the middle.
That is absolutely incredible. Rob, I know some people watching have got huge marketing interest. I wonder if I could ask you just to comment a little on your brand development, because it wasn't just Prayers of Faith. You spent a lot of time developing your brand, a unique shaped bottle, a unique color, a unique font. Kev, I wonder if I could ask you just to shoot up that the pic of those were all the brands you were competing against. You're arriving not with one bottle on the market, but competing against some very well-established brands there. Rob, could you talk us through that process?
Yeah, Steve. So we thought we had a look at the market, and I had two ladies that were just marketing consultants that I got involved in the process. They were friends of mine who I got involved, and so there was three of us, and we had a really good look at the South African market. We had a really good look at the international market digitally and what was available online. And what traditionally happens in the marketing space is you have a first to market in in a particular category. And in this case, it was Valpre, which is owned by Coca-Cola. You can see them on the right there. They were first to market in the late 90s in South Africa in the bottled water market. And then what you have is a lot of what we call Me Too brands that just follow the basic look of the brand leader and the market leader. And we looked at this and we thought this needs a rethink. This needs to be turned on its head. We thought it was actually boring, and it was time to do something totally different. So we came up with the bottle shape and the brand and the name. We started off. We had a whole lot of names. We had like 10 brands. Then we cut it down to 6. Then we cut it down to 3. And then we took 3 brands to consumer testing, which was really, really good fun. You sit behind the glass wall and you see these consumers, get questioned and tear these brands apart. And so when that process was finished, and it took us about 3 months or 4 months, that Thirsti brand stood out head and shoulders above the rest of what we'd developed. And so that was what we decided to go with. It was a risk. I mean, Oaks said to us in the beginning, "Are you Oaks nuts? Everyone's blue and green. You Oaks are red." But we said we want to be different. We want to position ourselves differently. We believe that this category is boring, and we want to liven it up a bit. So again, that was a risk, and And
you've used slightly thicker plastic in your bottles. You've got that oxygen cylinder shape. There's a lot of attention to detail in that as well.
Yeah, you're able to, if you've got ribbed support on your bottle, you're able to go a little thinner. When you don't have that type of support, you have to beef it up a bit, which we've done. We have reduced the weight as the years have gone on, but that's not an easy shape to bottle. It's not an easy shape to produce, but you learn and you grow with it. So I wouldn't change the brand either. I really like it. I think it's cool, and
really,
it seems like a couple of consumers also do.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Rob, you went kind of the beginning of 2016. You really started pushing water out. Between then and now, your business has grown between 80 and 100% per annum. You are distributing this year. I think you'll bottle around 80 million liters of water, if I have my facts correct. I mean, that is just astounding growth. What do you attribute all that to?
Steve, we've look, there's no doubt about it that the Lord has had his hand on our business, and there's been a huge amount of blessing. We've tried to really stick to biblical principles and how we do things. We've obviously, from a marketing point of view, we've also tried to push our business as hard as we can. But there's a really big part of our strategy has been to give and to help people. Mm-hmm. And water is one of the most amazing products to be able to give, because it's life-giving. And whenever there's a big crisis, if there's major fires or if there's drought, the first thing people call for is water. And it's really lucky for us to be in the position where we can step up and help. Mm-hmm. And if I can, I'd just like to share right in the beginning. So at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, we built the factory. It took us sort of 10, 11 months to build the plant. And the biggest challenge that I had underestimated when we just decided to go into this business was what it was going to take to get into these retailers. Mm. And the kind of reception that we would get from them. You have this view that they're going to welcome you with open arms, but boy, I was
with your new bottle shape.
I was so wrong. I thought they were going to be cheering us in the door. I was so wrong. Yeah. But anyway, so now we've built this factory. We've spent all this money. We've got this brand that we've developed. Now we've got to try and sell it. And I mean, some of the big retailers in South Africa, they make you wait 3 months for a meeting. You walk in the door, in 10 minutes, they use the most profane language to chase you out. And that actually happened to me. But at the same time that we just finished building this plant, we had the major drought at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. And it was November 15. The whole of the lower South Coast ran out of water. and the dam levels in the Umkomaas were so low that they couldn't pump fresh water out of them. They were pumping salt water, so they shut down the water supply to the south coast. And you know what it's like when there's no water. It's a health hazard. It's chaos. It's always, it's chaotic. And so I read this online, and I read this, and I got a few phone calls from mates down the south coast to say, yeah, we've got a big problem down here. So we decided to donate a whole truck to the south coast, 36 tons. Now, to be honest, today that's not a hang of a lot for us, but at that time, that was more water than we'd actually sold, because we just
gave away more than you'd sold at that time.
Yeah, at that time, right at the beginning. But we'd been in production for a month. We couldn't sell a darn thing. Here's a community in crisis, and I thought, well, if we can't sell it, let's just help and let's give it away. So we phoned a few people. We got the Shelley Centre down the south coast to open up their parking lot. We put it online. One of our marketing ladies got hold of East Coast Radio, and we just pitched up there on a Saturday morning, and we dished out 36,000 liters of water.
Wow!
And that exercise just galvanized in my mind what we're here for and what it is about. And we've been able to get involved in so many water crises and issues since then and help. But people are amazing too. People see that, and people appreciate that, and the wheel goes round, Steve. So what you sow, you reap, and
Yep.
Those are, as I said, it's about biblical principles, and so we've done that, and we continue to do that all the time. And yes, you just can't outgive God. So as you give, so it comes back, and so you give some more, and so it just comes back. But that was quite hair-raising as well, because here we've built this business. We've committed. I've asked my family for the money to build it. We can't sell anything. We're just getting on our feet, and now you're going to take the step and start giving. But that again is a biblical principle. Is actually, it's not difficult to give, and it's easy to give when you have plenty. But when you have nothing, it's a little tougher. But gee, God honors that, doesn't He?
That's awesome story. And I know, Rob, that your heart, your whole family's heart, is just to give and to bless people. You obviously don't want to trumpet it from the rooftops, as the Bible encourages us to keep our giving in secret. But I know you guys are just huge, generous hearts. And for me, that's a massive part of the business that you've built and been involved in. And you speak about sowing and reaping. You sowing with that one hand these tons of water, and then you get this massive foot in the door with Woolworths, and are doing not only Thirsti Water, but also you're bottling their water for them in the Woolworths house brand.
Yeah, Steve, that was just God's provision in our lives like we've never seen before. As I've said, we built this plant, spent a lot of money building it. We had some financial commitments, and now it's time to start selling. And I'd underestimated the time and effort that it takes to build a brand in the commercial space. And so I was looking for some volume of business to keep us going when I realized how long it was going to take to build this brand. And Woolworths, obviously, premium retailer in South Africa, very high standards. I thought, I'm going to have a go at these acts, and it's almost unbelievable, Steve. But I got on a plane. Our business was 3 months old. Went down to Cape Town, where the Woolies head office is. Banged on the door. Got to talk to somebody. I said, I'm a forester from Northern Natal, and I want to produce all your water for you. And these oaks started laughing, Steve. They laughed at me. And I said, Oaks, just give me 5 minutes. Just hear me out. I'm telling you, I've got something special. But if I sit here and look at your face and over your desk and tell you, you're not going to believe me. Here's an air ticket. Come and see me. I'll pay. Come and see me. And let's take it from there.
That's you telling the Woolworths buyers, I'll fly you up, come and visit me.
Yeah, I'll fly you up from Cape Town. We'll pick you up in Durban. We'll bring you up to the factory. Come and have a look at what we've been busy with for the last year, and then let's talk. Because they have a lot of oaks at them all the time, but some hillbilly forester from Northern Natal that rocks up and asks if they can produce their water is probably one of the craziest things that they've seen. But anyway, one lady said, "Okay, I'll come. I'll come and visit you." And she came, and I was very aware that this was our opportunity and probably the only opportunity that we would get. And Steve, how we got this right can only be attributed to just God's provision and God's blessing, because we got the Woolworths contract for their still water and their sparkling water for Gauteng and KZN, and we were in production for Woolworths about 3 months later. So, but not only that, Steve, is that since we started that, as we've built our relationships with them and we've shown them what we can do, and we've really given it our best shot. So they've given us all their water nationally. So we do their water right through South Africa now, all their still water, all their sparkling water. They gave us
Rob, that's if you buy Woolworths water in a Woolworths branded bottle, it's water from your farm.
Correct. It comes from us, all of it. But Steve, as we've worked with them, so they've given us. It started just with the water, just for Gauteng and KZN, but they gave us the national contract for all of it, right through South Africa. Then they gave us their flavored water. Then they gave us their soft drinks. So we do all of their soft drinks now, their lemonades, their ginger beers, their cream sodas, all of that stuff. They also gave us their bar mixes, so soda waters, ginger ales. So we've managed to build on that and grow into other spaces, and it was God's provision in a time. And what's also great about having the Woolworths contract nationally is that allows us to build the Thirsti brand on the back of that volume, which we've done. You know, it's given us the cash flow and the volume through the business to be able to do that. So, I still don't know. If you ask me how did you get that right, I didn't get it right. It wasn't. I just happened to be in that place at that time, but God opened the doors. God put His hand on those people and said, "Listen to this forester from Northern Natal."
That is absolutely awesome, Rob. In terms of business and faith, what is God teaching you at this time? And if I could tack on another question to that, what encouragement do you have for the business people in our church and anybody else who's watching this connected in? It's been a tough year for many people.
Yeah.
What are the things God's teaching you, and what encouragement have you got for people in business?
Yeah, Steve, the first thing is have faith. You know, we know where our provision comes from. We see people around the world depending on governments. We see them depending on scientists. We see them depending on all sorts of things. But you know what? Our provision comes from Him and Him alone. And so we need to just put our faith in that, and we need to rest in that, because I think there's a lot of anxiety. And God's got this. God's got us. He clothes the birds of the field. So we don't have anything to worry about. The other thing that I've also just seen through this period is that, obviously I said about the anxiety, and people I think it is tough. It's tough for everybody. I don't think there's a single business that hasn't been affected by this, but we need to rest in Him and put our faith in Him. But we need to more than ever apply the biblical principles in our businesses. And this what this coronavirus has done is it causes everybody to freeze up. So nobody wants to pay anybody else. Nobody wants to pay us what they owe us, and it puts us under pressure to be able to pay the people, our creditors, the people that we owe money. But the one biblical principle that I found just that works amazingly is openness and honesty. If you can't, and this situation is not created by us, but it is what it is. But if you I've just found if you open and honest with people, and you pick up the phone and you phone that oak and you say, "Listen, bud, I owe you X amount of money. I actually can't pay you right now, but I want to tell you that I know about it. I'm working on it. I'm waiting for some money. I think I can pay you by the 10th or the 12th. That openness and that honesty just makes the world of difference. And people clam up during this time, and it's the time where we need to be open and communicating more than ever before. And then the other one is that I think there's going to be that when the dust settles, and the dust is going to settle, and it's not going to be very long. When the dust settles, I think there's going to be a mass of opportunity which comes out of this. So I would encourage the business people and the businessmen and women to, walk around the world with your eyes open, because there's going to be stuff that comes out of this. I think that China's a mass of supply chains are going to exit out of China. There's going to be a lot of companies all over the world looking for product to be made. I think we've got a weak currency now, which is going to help us with exports. I think there's there's Brexit going on, so there's opportunities in the UK. I really think there's going to be great opportunities for business. But this has been on my heart too. I think there's going to be great opportunities to help and to play a role in helping people. And I don't think that they're going to be in the traditional space. There's a lot, and I've just been flabbergasted in the last week. There's a lot. There's a lot of churches that are doing things like making food packs and taking them to the townships, and that's great. But I've just come to realize that even in our very own churches, Steve, there are people that are suffering, and they're not talking about it. They're not sharing it with people, and that are really battling. And so I think we're going to have a great opportunity to give and to get involved. But I don't think it's going to be in the places that we traditionally go and look to help. I think we need to be on the lookout for opportunities to help in unusual places.
I love what you said about walking around with your eyes open, because in effect that's how Thirsti started. You're walking around, you talk to a lady who's just come to get some bottles of water from your farm, find there's 700 million liters under the surface. You were sitting on a gold mine without, even better than a gold mine, but without knowing it. And none of that would have happened if it wasn't eyes open, looking for opportunity and God's provision in the whole story, Robert. It's an awesome story.
Steve, the Lord gives us abilities, and we need to use those abilities. Sometimes I have seen this in Christian circles where people have this expectation that things are going to fall into their laps, and that's not my view. That's not my opinion. My opinion is that God's given us a brain. He's given us eyes. He's given us abilities, and we need to step out and use the abilities that He's given us. And when we do that, and we step out and we show the faith that we should, then He adds to that. He will add more than you can hope, dream, or imagine. But you need to take that step. It's not going to fall in your lap.
I love that. Great comment. Absolutely love it, Rob. Rob, so many things we could talk about related to the business, just even as we're talking. I'm remembering other things that we've seen going through your factory there, but I wanted to keep this within this time frame. Just in closing, also, you come from a tremendous family of God-honoring heritage. Your grand Rose Hoatson, amazing lady, the matriarch. She has 7 kids, you were telling me, 38 grandchildren, you're one of them, and 64 great-grandkids, is that correct?
Correct, Steve. So
we pray for all of them.
Steve, and we all saved, we all serve the Lord. It's amazing. God's blessing and provision in our families is amazing. My grandparents came out of a Roman Catholic background. They were Roman Catholics, hence the 7 kids. And they were just spirit-filled and miraculously saved. I think it was about 1978, around about there. And it's just gone through our family. And my dad is the eldest of 7. I have 38 cousins on the one side. So those 7 have had 38 kids, and my cousins and I have together now had 64 great-grandkids for my gran, and she's still alive and strong as an ox. She's 88, had her birthday 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's just a wonderful thing to God's vision. Hey?
Yeah. Praise for all of you guys by name.
She does, and she writes to the kids, all the great-grandkids on their birthdays, and sends them $50 or $100. She's amazing lady. So we just thank God for her every day. And I don't know how much longer she has got. She's in good health and she's strong, but she is 88. So she's ready to go. When she says whenever God calls her, she'll go immediately with no objections.
That's awesome. Rob, thanks so much to you and Kim for your friendship and just for sharing some of your story tonight with our church. It's absolutely amazing to see and hear what God's done. Look forward to hearing what happens with Thirsti brand in the future. But just thanks for your generosity, your heart for people, for the King, and for sharing it with us tonight. Really appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure, Steve. Thank you for your friendship. And I just, I don't think your church knows what a blessing you are when they release you to come to us for a weekend like you do every year. We look forward to it. We love it. We just love your involvement with us. We love it when you come and speak to us. So to everyone at CityHill, thank you for that. It means the world that you guys are able to release them to come and chat to us, and to you and Jax for your friendship as well. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Rob. Thank you so much, and it's a great pleasure. Great. Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in and for listening. I trust that you're inspired to walk around with your eyes open and to see the opportunities God has for us. And thanks again, Rob and Kim. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. God bless.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.